I forget when you, like yesterday was sunny too, and it's like, holy crimes. I can't believe I haven't seen the sun for that long. like, it's like a surprise, like, oh, that's what it feels like. So that's a good thing. One of the things I was like, and that starts the wave of being appreciative, right? Which I think is a big part of what a yoga practice is, for me at least. And I want you to take a second and think about, one of the things I'm always trying to share with you is at least my process and possible processes about being a yoga student, not just being your teacher, but being a yoga student. Because at the end of the day, that's what I want you to become deeper and deeper. And I hope over time, over the years of your practice, that your reasons for being a student, for practicing yoga, keep growing and expanding, and you let them evolve, and you keep them all, right? Your reasons for doing yoga. And I want you to think about, there's the obvious reasons, it's like the things you say when someone asks you, well, why do you do yoga? And you say the things. And then there are the secret reasons you do yoga. The ones that you might not even put into words yet, as to what you particularly might be getting out of it. What you might be, whatever it is, the quiet little things, the things that you appreciate. Hopefully a lot of people come to yoga at first because they think they should do something, right? And dang, I hope you've gone past the should part, right? Because should isn't exactly nourishing, but I still have that energy in me. I should practice more. I should this, I should that. I hope you keep having a fuller and growing list of why you practice yoga, and places where, so like, honestly, one of the things that I'm appreciative about that yoga's taught me, this should be one of my yoga secrets. I won't tell you all of them, by the way. I'm not going to tell you all my secrets about why I love yoga, right? Because some of them will always and only be mine. And that's what I want for you. I want you to know kind of your unsaid or but like, I'm able to feel sunlight better because of yoga. Like I can let in my experience more profoundly when I need to, right? And so like letting in sunlight, it seems like, oh yeah, it's nice and you can keep it up in your head, but do you know how to let it go all the way in? Kind of like the sensation of relief, right? These are some of the things why I practice yoga. And it's interesting, yoga ends up not, like never, I'm scared. I'm always scared to say never and mean it truthfully, but I don't think yoga has ever deepened darkness as it's coming through me, like what's unhappy. Like it always is a grounding thing, because when things are going bad, that's like all different kind of energy, right? And everyone has good and bad days, but like, it's not just that yoga actually lets me take in sunlight. It's also a stabilizer, because it grounds my mind and helps me remember, right? And so there are I think very few things that in general, if I'm being really honest, I can't think of any time off the top of my head where yoga has ultimately had a negative effect on my life. What about you? Right? Think that through. Let it in. Those are the types of secrets I'm talking about. Have your secrets. Don't just think of yoga as a tool. It's truth for me. It's like, wait, I get to remember the world and appreciate the world when I practice yoga. I'm not just doing exercises. I'm doing something else. All right, sit up straight and tall. Start to feel more rather than less. So this week I have a really busy week. I'm doing a lot of teaching, holy crimes, right? I'm glad I get to practice yoga today, right? So let in. So at first you just let, and typically because we're always holding ourselves together, the letting kind of is like a collapsing. But one of the subtle things that yoga has taught me is that I actually allow and let in better when I don't just completely collapse, but rather if I stay alert, let my spine be more alert instead of duller, right? More alert, have some structure. I'm actually a better observer of the world around me and my own experience. So as I bring a little bit more alertness to my spine, that naturally will connect you, that'll be helped and connect you to your feet and your sitting bones and how you're sitting. Then I'm going to distinguish my sitting bones from my lower abdomen and start to lift up my chest, because I actually know that lifting the chest is an act of transformation, actually. It's an energy changer. It's not a futile effort. Opening your chest is not a futile effort, ever. It changes something. And then being more aware of all that's around you, but do it by going inward. Soften your jaw, your temples, the inside of your mouth. Go inward and let your senses, like your skin, reach outward and feel the room and let it in, especially what's behind you. There's more here. And it's up to you to make it for the good. If you can relatively easily, bring your hands into prayer. Don't worry if you can't. Just add some symmetry. If you can't bring your hands in prayer, feel both feet, both sitting bones, both shoulders, right? The sides on between your shoulder and ear. Let go of your day. Maybe just a very gentle inward smile about your secrets with yoga. Good. And then release. Take your sternum up towards your chin down over your sternum. There's a reason why I do this in every single class. It's because this is a really important thing to learn from this position. It connects energy. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. So one of the things, as you know, I'm teaching like a workshop this week of like 60 new teachers. And one of the things I want to get them to understand at a really deep level is that a lifted chest is in every single pose, right? Which means how you lift your chest. It's not just that you can crank your chest open. That's for my low back too much. I'm off balance when I do that. Is that this action of lifting your chest is fundamental in every yoga pose. Now, one of the things, anyone carry any stress up here? Right here? Right? No, of course. If anyone doesn't raise their hand, you're a liar, right? Okay, you're a liar. Almost everybody does, right? right through here. I very rarely met anyone that does it, right? And what happens is that over time, the trapezius, this muscle right here, that like the Vulcan neck pinch from Star Trek that would knock someone out. I think they're squeezing the trapezius. Have you ever had anyone squeeze your trapezius too hard, that big muscle, that rope right there? Yeah, it's going to knock you out. It's horrible, right? But what happens is it rolls forward, right? Which has a whole bunch of consequences. It goes up. If you're at your computer a lot, it goes up towards your ears and rolls forward, right? And makes a hollowness right here, which actually, I'm telling you from a yoga perspective, actually robs you from energy. This position will fatigue you faster, right? Even though it's effort to counteract it, right? So this position, so what happens in this position, especially at the computer during the pandemic, this stuff is getting tighter and tighter, right? Now, you can try to crank that back, and everyone crank your shoulders back. Yeah, that's just like way too physical, but it's okay. My head pops forward, it's like whatever. But it's actually what I want to get you to get is that it's way more subtle. So one of the ways to help you learn how to lift your chest is to learn, and this is going to sound like a funny instruction, learn to move the skin, not just the muscle, but the skin from here down your back body, right? Now, what do you mean by move by skin? Well, you can't really move skin without moving some flesh and fascia and stuff. So it's not just skin. But I want you to get something about the exhalation. Usually I talk about the inhalation as an expansion and the exhalation as an extension, except take a breath in, right? And now exhale as if I'm pushing in on the inner edge of your shoulder blade. I've taught you that many times before, right? But as those shoulder blades come forward and into the body, notice that there's a change in the feeling on your skin right here. So it turns out that exhalation is one of the ways that skin moves down your back. And I'm telling you, that's going to help your trapezius be less tense. So just lift up your chest, right? So it won't work as well if your chest is dropped. Like lift up your chest, take a big inhalation. And as you exhale from the back ribs, watch what happens. Roll this back, the shoulder blades spread and they drop and they come forward. But as they do that, let there be an even more subtle awareness of this going down. So you've probably heard me say, drop a silk curtain down from the base of your neck to your tailbone, right? Because it's a soft feeling. That's why I say silk, right? It's not a big, right? It's like when you inhale and you exhale and you follow it, there's a softness that helps that drop down towards the base of your spine. So
Matthew,
yeah.
Excuse my interruption. There's somebody having some trouble hearing you. I'm just wondering if you can speak up just a little bit.
Wow, I'm yelling in my house. I had a cup of coffee, but I will try talking even louder, right? I'm not a big coffee drinker, but when I do, good luck, I get intense, right? All right, so again, you're inhaling and you're watching the subtlety of the movement on your chest and back body on exhalation. And even if you don't think you can feel it, keep a placeholder there. It's happening. There's more happening in stuff than you know. You're just not used to listening to it. So hopefully on the exhalation, your shoulders are actually also dropping, right? But now I want to add something, right? As you inhale and you exhale and you feel that dropping on the back body, hit your sitting bone down and lift up through your spine as you're exhaling, right? So we're making this more complicated, but also simpler if you follow it. So this is a dynamic change. So for me to feel it more, sometimes what I do, and I'll talk extra loud from back here, is I grab my wheelchair ground myself so I can help the lift in my chest. And then I follow the same stuff with the breath. And I try to feel the skin dropping. And then release and go back to the posture that makes your trapezius sore and carry too much tension. Right? There it is. There's that damn thing, right? One of my secret loves of yoga is that little things, if I pay attention, can be transformative. It gives me hope. It's one of my secrets, right? So again, now this time, sit up straight and tall, start to rise your chest. Inhale. Exhale, trying to drop the shoulder blades and bring them forward. Just so you know, that could also help you push down through your feet, but on a very subtle level. There are all these secrets in poses. Good, and then release. So that's all the subtle stuff. But what if that were happening in every pose? All right, so I want you to lift up, get that sense of lightness. So I'm gonna lean over onto one sitting bone and then the other. There's one that I'm always heavier on, it's this one, right? So I'm trying to lift up and set myself down more equally. So it's not just though that I want equalness. With my posture, right, one sitting bone is way heavier than the other. What I'm trying to do when I lift up and set myself back down is not fall into the same place I always sit, right? Variation is really important if you're sitting a lot. So I'm lifting up again, trying to set myself back down more equally, which for me means more awareness in my left sitting bone, because my right one wants to let me hide, and it rolls my shoulders forward and pisses off my trapezius. And this is why this rotator cuff over time tore, right? So you can just see all the things of my 55 years of habit, and especially 42 years since I was 13. So I'm going to set myself down again and figure out what that feels like as I have better weight, more equal between my sitting bones. What does that feel like in my feet? What does that feel like in the tip of my shoulders? How do I hit down through my sitting bones and extend out to the top of my head? Now, as I'm in slightly better alignment, this would be a good time to breathe, because I want to mark what it feels like with my breath to be in better alignment. And then here I go to the collapse. That's when I'm stressed out. I go to that place of painful comfort in my posture. You have a place like that too. You have a default setting in your posture that actually makes you crankier over time, but it's a place of comfort. All right. Okay, so now lean over to the right. Remember, we're trying to make space in the low back, right? Space in the low back, because that's going to compress. Go both ways. Come forward, right? Again, hit your sitting bones down and start to lift your chest, but do it with the awareness that you're trying to make space in your low back, and then go back, right? So we're just trying to change gravity. Go over to the right, come forward, just trying to bring base variations into a static awareness, and then back. Watch your neck if it's like making you, spin your neck, but otherwise maybe make a little more space between your chest and your chin, right? But the thing about that is, when those of you that are taking your head back, and you don't have to, you don't want to take your head back and shorten too much the back of your neck. So a lot of us take our head up and we just collapse into our vertebrae and so the skin gets tighter there. No, lift from here, take your head back, but try to keep the back side of your neck long. And if that means holding your head to support it, do that. In fact, everyone do that. So if you can, right, take a hand on the back of your head, support it, take your head back, but the whole time lengthen your neck, keep it in traction as you take your head back. Good, and then release. And then do it with the other hand, because I don't know about you, but I got a good stretch right there, right? So I already know as a yogi at home, I'm gonna make sure I do it on both sides, right? So now I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna lengthen my neck as I take it back. Good. And then release. Then I'm gonna lift up again, let myself hang, maybe jiggle around, because I want that space in my low back. I want to undo the compression that I promised you're going to sit in all week. You're going to forget and you're going to compress your low back, right? So now sit up straight. So with this sense of lightness that hopefully came from some of that movement, and I mean subtle, right? Inhale and exhale and drop the skin down the back body, but do it from a sense of lightness that was maybe created by some of the movement. Good. Because a lot of times when you're doing a yoga pose, you're engaging your muscles and you're locking your energy down, right? You don't want to just do that. So take your arms to your sides. Stretch your arms straight down. Now, I hope some of you have gotten better at being able to squeeze your upper arm bone. But I don't want you to do it too hard, right? So I want you to bring the bicep and the tricep towards the bone, but keep your elbow pit open and your palm open, right? As you squeeze the upper arm together. And as you do, I want you to notice that this can lift and there's a drop down the skin on the back body, right? So all these positions, and then I want you to open and lift right here. All these positions, all of them are waiting for you. Good, and then release. And now ground your hands and feet. So I'm not going to do it on the chair, but so that's another one of my secrets about why I do yoga is that I know that yoga will always wait for me. I've gone through times where I practice more and practice less. Yoga is and always will be my faithful companion. It will always respond to me when I start to practice, right? So lean forward. If you can put your hands on a table, that's good. Grounding your hands and feet, right? Now I want you to feel your sitting bones, lift your sternum, spread between your shoulder blades, and roll the shoulders down the back body. Lift the front side up. So now we're doing something more active. Now, so you're more physically working, but now I want you to use your breath, especially the exhalation, to move the skin down the back body, even while you're really active. And you're going to find that's why we often tell you to broaden across your collarbones, because it does something. Good, and then release. Inhale, take your left arm up. Extend up, so hit down and rise up. So at first, I want you just to hit down with your sitting bones and make a relationship between this going down and this going up. I just realized I was not talking loud enough again. Good, and then release. Okay, same thing here. Up and down. So you're going down through your sitting bones, up with your arm. Oh, keep sitting straight up and down. Yep. Some of you want to work too hard and then take your arm down. And now this time, take your arm up, hit down through your sitting bones, but make sure you're extending down through the inner edge of each heel. I want you to bring more awareness here to the rib cage as you press down through your right sitting bone and right foot. And then take that inhalation, and on the exhalation, drop awareness down the back body. Good, and then release. Up, down through the sitting bones, extend down through the inner heels. Include your whole body in this position. Breathe, inhale, and on the exhalation, bring the skin down the back body. Good, and then release. Now I'm going to take up both arms. I'm going to sacrifice some sensation. So probably will you take up both arms if you can. Now this is harder. Can you feel how more compressed your back is? Good, and then release. Now I want you to lean forward and make space in your low back. So I'm lifting your chest, hitting down through sitting bones, broadening across your sacrum. I've given you that instruction a lot, because when you broaden across your very low back, it actually makes space in your low back, right? You feel that sense of space. Now lengthen from your pubis bone to your sternum. Feel this length? Okay, can you bring it back? So we're gonna back up and take your arms straight over your head, but try not to sacrifice the length in your back. You're not gonna be able to do it, but maybe you can a little bit. Good, and then release. So this length in your low back is a big part of downward facing dog. So if you have a table in front of you, bring your palms on the table. If you don't, bring your arms, right, like that, right? But no, what we want is not the lift in the chest. If you're doing it on your hands, we want the length in the back. So ground the sitting bones, ground the feet, spread across the sacrum, lift the chest, broaden across the collarbones, because that's going to help your breath. Inhale, and then exhale farther into the pose, like feel the pose more. That doesn't mean I mean come farther forward. I mean something like come farther into the pose, which is different. It's not just physical. Good, and then release. So everyone that was using the table, we're gonna do it all the same. We're gonna do it now, sitting back and using your own lap, right? So if I'm putting my hands on my knees to actually get length in my back, right? The tendency is I want to crank my low back. Don't, right? Hit down through your sitting bones, rise up, lengthen the underside of your arms, connect that to the inside edge of your thighs, and press down through the inner heels. Try to do this without arching your back too much. You're gonna arch your back some, right? But engage. Use the underside of your thighs, your butt bones and your back of your thighs, as you extend your arms, extending your low back, lifting your chest. Good, and then release. So again, there are all these little secrets that I love about yoga, right? So we're gonna do the same thing, and maybe you already did this, maybe you didn't, was as we come into the same position, I want you to broaden your palm, right? I want you to add, in the middle of working hard, I want you to make your brain do something that takes softness and consciousness, right? So here, your arms out again, right? You have to come forward a little bit without arching your back too much. Hit down with your sitting bones, down through your feet, lift up through the chest without arching your low back too much. Engage the underside of your arms, So now I'm pretty gripped. Now I'm going to use my palms to take my temperature, to figure out if I can be soft on a part of my body while I'm working. Take a couple of breaths. Now, can you ask yourself weird questions like, are you stretching both sides of each finger? Right? All the things I'm constantly working to increase the amount of awareness. Good, and then release. So we were doing that, right? But we're also pretty close to a forward, to a back bend, to what would be a pose called upward facing dog, where you're laying flat on the mat and you start to lift up your spine off the ground and roll it back. It's similar to Cobra Pose. So we're gonna now go for that more. So I want you to come forward. So if you are laying flat on the mat on your stomach, which is how Cobra Pose is usually done, what ends up happening to a lot of people, I mean, like a lot of traditional students, right, is that they think it's about how high they can come up, and they actually aggravate their low back. And so when you're a teacher, you try to get them to engage their legs, right? And not just crank themselves up. When you're sitting, that's even harder, okay? But when you start to get it, you actually learn it better. So you're coming forward. So I'm putting weight on my femur bones to help me maintain the downward connection. So when you're sitting in a chair, back bends can be aggravating because you end up doing them from your waist up, right? So the tension goes right into your back. Okay, so Dennis, I think it's you that gotta watch your back. Don't overdo anything, right? Okay, so I want you to come forward and take the time to lengthen your low back, which means paradoxically broaden across your sacrum, right? Broaden, extend down from the inner groin to the inner knee, right? And then when you get that sense of your legs more, start to lift your chest up, right? Now, as your head comes up, I hope like a dumbwaiter, your shoulder blades are going down and the skin is going down your back body, right? Because this is the part that people miss, is that it's not just your spine and bones that are back bending. Your skin is lengthening on your front body and shortening on your back body. So ground down, lift up, broaden across the sacrum to make sure it doesn't go on your low back. Now start to broaden across your collarbones, take the shoulder blades down. Now watch that trapezius. Is the trapezius, even though everything's rolling back, is your trapezius still being stuck forward? Probably. So you gotta like really start to feel more, especially on the exhalation. So you're really trying to open your chest. Good, and then release. Come on back. So I want to check in. Is everyone being able to hear me good enough? Raise your thumb if you are. All right, so I hope that person wasn't, maybe it was their internet. Okay, so we're gonna do it again. So we're trying to create conditions of laying flat on your, like if you wanna do this in your bed tonight, this would be a good thing. Sometimes like do Cobra Pose in your bed, right? Where you actually have all the reference on the front. So again, you're coming forward, you're grounding. So you feel and you exhale and you let yourself ground. So another one of my secret loves of yoga is that you get to come from a restful state and emerge into action, into activation. So I could just, but now I want you to ground. I want you to start to connect your sitting bones. You got the weight on your legs where your heels are. Now you're going to start to activate. So as soon as you start spreading your sacrum now and lifting your chest, that's the same action. Start to lift up, opening the hood on the chest. So the more you lift here, the better, as long as you keep your legs. And then if your neck wants to do it and you're willing to keep your neck long on the back, start to look up. Let in the sunlight. Now, for me, good, and then release. We're gonna do it again in a second. So I remember one of the times I heard a line from actually Prashant Iyengar, who he's the son of Bikash Iyengar, who early on in his yoga career, he lives in India, in Pune, India, and his arm was outside of his car, his elbow, and a bus hit it. Okay. He was in the hospital for years and years, right? So he can't straighten his arm. They never healed it quite right. He can't straighten his arm all the way. So he took yoga and asana farther into pranayama, into breathing, than did his father. Okay. So he's got a much more breath-oriented thing. And I remember hearing him or reading something he wrote. He said, in every different pose, there's a different kind of breath, right? Because the constraints are different in your body, right? And so you can't just have one level of inhalation and exhalation, right? Now, the pose we were just in would be a perfect example of that. When you're in a back bend in particular, your breath has to change if you're trying to maximize the effect of yoga. So everyone just like sit up straight and tall for a second and notice when you're more free, sit up tall, but when you don't have extra constraint, the way your rib cage can expand is easier. You can get that kind of puffy feeling. Now that's going to be challenged in a back bend. Okay. So a back bend, so when you're just sitting up and tall and taking a breath, right? Now notice the difference in how much harder it is. Back bend's kind of a cross between a couple of things. So now take both your arms up. And if you need to grab your wrists, that's fine. Whatever you do to take your arms up, right? Notice that the expansion of your rib cage is way harder with your breath here. Can you feel that? Right? Good, and then take your arms down, right? So the way you need to breathe when your arms are over your head, you can't just default back to how you can breathe when you're sitting with your arms down because your rib cage doesn't open the same. So if you try to do the same breath, you're actually doing violence to the pose, to your body, violence taken softly. It's not like getting punched in the face, but you're like it's a different kind of breathing. Right? You can't do the same. So again, take your arms up and figure out what it means in this position to get as good a breath as you can. At what point do you stop pushing your breath into your ribcage? At what point does your mind be satisfied? Take your arm down, because when my arms are down, my inhalation can go longer, right? So take your arms down, just notice your inhalation. There isn't that constraint built in physically, right? So then take my arms up. Now I have to figure out and be patient and let go of a certain feeling. So I don't try to push my rib cages hard. Good, and then take your arms down. If I try to recreate the same feeling in the chest, in the rib cage, I'm going to do violence. But the advantage of having your arms over your head is that it teaches you something about exhalation. All right, so inhale, take your arms up. So now your inhalation can't be as robust, but the exhalation can help you lengthen, right? In a way that it doesn't in the same way. Take your arms down and prove it to yourself. Inhale, exhale, and when you lengthen, when your arms are down, you tend to arc your back. It's not a true lengthening, right? Arms up again. The lengthening is hard, right? With both arms up, because some of us are off gravity. Take your arms down. That is why I'm trying to show you why I teach what I teach. right? Often I have you just take your left arm up and press down through your right sitting bone and right leg. So the inhalation, although it can't be as expansive, the exhalation can go down the other side of your body. And you learn something about exhalation when you do it one arm at a time. Take your arms on. But maybe you didn't know that you're supposed to be learning all that. That's why yoga takes years, right? That's why you need to just practice stuff. I've been practicing for 29 years. I know a lot more that's going on in the poses, right? So now I'm inhaling. It can't be as expansive, but my exhale can be more directive. One arm at a time, Ellen. One arm's up. Oh, yeah, I see. I see what you're saying. Do both. And then exhale, and then release. So we're going to do the first side again. Remember, we're talking about back bends right now. You may not know it, right? So we're going to take the first arm up, and I want you to notice inhaling is different. On the exhalation, the shoulder blade drops down, but try to have your whole trapezius follow it. Inhale up. Pressing down through the opposite sitting bone and the opposite foot to raise the arm up. Inhale and feel the expansion more on one side of your rib cage. But then exhale the shoulder girdle down as you extend out through your fingers. So as the shoulder girdle goes down, awareness goes down to the opposite leg. Good, and then release. Inhale, take the other arm up. Okay, inhale, feel the expansion. This is more collapsed on this side for me. I inhale, don't try to force my inhalation, but on the exhalation, I drop the shoulder girdle down. Extend down through my legs, and because I'm going down, part of me can go up better. Good, and then release. Now notice most of, especially for me, but most of you too, you won't be as good at it when you take both arms up. Try to use your breath. I can't get nearly the same inhalation. I can't get as much extension on the exhalation. Good, and then down. Now the great thing is now if I support my arm, if I have them out straight, but I put them on a table, or I put them on my lap, right, and get grounded, then my inhalation and my exhalation, Renee, broaden across your collarbones, my inhalation and my, there you go, my inhalation and exhalation can be more dynamic, especially if I'm leaning forward. This is why dog pose is such an important pose, right? One of the many reasons. So when I'm more grounded here, I'm going to inhale and feel the expansion of my rib cage. And then on the exhalation, I'm going to drop my shoulder blades, let my trapezius fall down to the back, and open my chest even more. Good. And then release. So now we're going to back bend over the chair a little bit, and you're going to confront some combination of this position with this position in terms of your breath. Okay? So I've been breaking apart. So like imagine I gave you like a rope there, and I've been pulling apart some of the threads. So when you come back to the back bend, you figure out how your breath has to change. Okay? All right, so we're doing the Cobra opening, right? Like the one that's like coming out of the earth more. And now you're gonna go back over the top of your chair. And then make length if your neck feels okay from your sternum through your chin. And then come on back. We didn't focus on breath because I wanted you to feel the pose first. And I wanted you to feel the pose first. And now you can already tell when you're tipped back and your head is back, especially, you're not going to be able to take a big inhalation, not without violence. Okay, so now here's my lifted chest, broadening here. Now, before you come into the pose, drop the skin down the back body so the trapezius knows where it needs to go. Come back up over the chair. Take your head back if you're comfortable, otherwise keep it forward like this. Now take a breath. Exhale. Figure out what to do with the energy of the exhale. Good, and then release. So let's talk about it just for a second. When I'm in a back bending position, right, and I try to take a breath, it's not as deep, but you notice you can feel it more on your front body than your back body, right? We're going to do it again, and I know that was true actually, because I've done this a lot, right? But and what's important is that when you're in a back bend and you're breathing, even though you can only feel more of the front side, don't push that side of your breath harder in order to feel the back side of your body. Keep that the same and bring your awareness to the back side more softly, like the skin part, so you can get your breath working a little bit better. Okay? So let's try it again. So you're grounding your feet, you're on your sitting bones, your chest is kind of lifted because you know where you're going to. You know what's about to happen, right? And then you go back against your chair. I push on my femur bones. I want extra length in my low back. I push down, I go up with my chest. Start to take my head back, or not, right? Now I gotta watch my breath. I'm getting thwarted on expanding my rib cage. So I'm gonna bring my awareness to my backside of my body, of my back. Trying to make the breath more nourishing. And then on the exhalation, I'm gonna go slightly and gently farther into the back bend. And now I'm gonna come forward and uncoil. Going soft, because if you go too fast out of a back bend, you can get dizzy. Because it's a big change, especially for us people over 55, right? I'm over 55, I'm just a few months over 55. So I'm gonna breathe here for a second and feel. I hope that back bend, although there was more awareness in it, felt pretty intense. So I'm centering here for a second, because I know as a yogi, when I've exerted strongly, I need to integrate. Good, and then release. Now I want you to come, either your hands on the table, hands on your legs. I want you to come forward and do whatever version that you can muster of downward facing dog, right? So you're lengthening your back. You're not back bending. That's different. You're broadening and you're lengthening. You're hitting your sitting bones down. So with me, with my elbows on my knees, right? Instead of back bending, I'm actually hitting down with my arms, pressing down through my heels, keeping my sitting bones down, broadening across my sacrum, and taking a few breaths. Trying to help the breath, don't push it, but allow the breath to get to the pot right underneath the collarbones. Now, what's better is if you can get your arms out straight, your arms can help this process, right? That you're working on in downward facing dog. But it's not, it still works here. Just doesn't have quite as much dimension on the outer body. Good, and then come on back up. So now, inhale, take an exhalation, lengthen, so and remember you're going up through your left arm and down through your right sitting bone and leg, right? On this next inhalation, exhale and bring your arm down to the outside of your right leg. Now, before you take the other arm behind you, take a breath here. Ground your sitting bones, lengthen your low back. As the breath expands your rib cage, don't force it. Let it nudge into the bottom part of your rib cage and lift under your collarbones, which takes the skin from the trapezius down the back body. On your next inhalation, figure out where you're going to take your other hand. I'm going to take it behind my wheelchair. Could be here though, could be on my wheel, could be behind me. I'm going to ground here again. I'm going to watch how my breath, because my spine is twisted, I shouldn't push it too hard, but it is pretty dynamic, right? It's like it's got more boundary to it. Inhale, feel the expansion, like space between the vertebrae, and then exhale and revolve. Remember, if you're cranking so hard that you're losing touch with your breath, you're not maximizing your yoga practice. I hope on the exhalation, you're dropping your shoulder blades down even more, therefore feeling your sitting bones in your feet. Good, and then release. So think about the flow of like aliveness, animation, life force through your body is like a river, or like coming out of your faucet, and you can actually, when you see something, you can guide it with your hands a little bit. You can like make the water move and do all these things as they come through your hands. Well, think of your asana as that you're actually diverting and directing the river in slightly different directions with an asana. Sometimes that speeds up the flow of the river. Sometimes it spreads out the flow of the river. And always it does both. Okay? Isn't that a paradox? Right? So now inhale. Exhale, lengthen that low back and spine. So I'm grabbing my wheelchair, help me get extra length in my back with the down arm. And on the next inhalation, I'm exhaling and going across. Now I'm stopping in 3 different parts, right? Here with my arm and this arm still being right here, right? I'm taking stock here. I'm taking a breath. I'm feeling the change. I'm feeling how I shouldn't push the depth of the inhalation too hard. And then I exhale. And on the next inhalation, I figure out where I'm going to put my arm. On this side, I should not take my arm behind the wheelchair, I can tell. I should actually take it more on the back side of the wheel. So now in this position, because each side's different, in this position, I'm now taking a breath, letting the rib cage expand, keeping connected to my sitting bones and my feet, lengthening my spine on the exhalation. And then on this next inhalation, I exhale and revolve. Again, now in the next breath, I'm not forcing my breath, but I'm letting it expand me into my rib cage. And then exhale and turn. Now I'm going to lift on the collarbones to drop the skin down from the trapezius down towards my tailbone. Take one more breath. And teach the skin on my exhalation. Good, and then come on back to center. Be in the center. And then prepare for Shavasana. So I said, be in the center. I hope you're practicing symmetry, right? Because symmetry is guaranteed for you when you're laying on the floor. Well, it's not guaranteed, but it's easier because the whole back body's getting supported. Here you gotta like let the symmetry emerge, even if your posture isn't perfect. I remember the first time as you soften your temples, your jaw, the inside of your mouth. Remember the first time I really heard, probably have been said before, even let go of your teeth and your gums, right? That's a really intense instruction. But you have to figure out, what would that even feel like? Close your eyes from top to bottom if you're comfortable. Stay alert, but take in nourishment. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. Start to bring yourself back. When you're ready, open your eyes slowly. And then close them again. And then open them up. So, one of the things I want you to take away from this class is all the different kinds of breath you have, all the different ways it can travel through your body, right? How your body can support it, and breath that works against the feeling in your body is going to bring violence on a subtle level, right? It also can bring gain, right? But in my body that's so misaligned, if I and I struggle with gravity, if I force my breath, I actually harm my poses. All right, everybody, hands together if you can. Namaste. Spirit in me bows to the spirit in you.